Let's solve for x on this equation. When you have a matrix equation, you're having a hard time starting it, if you don't know where to start, here's a little trick you can do. Just replace the matrices with row numbers. So let's call this matrix 10. Let's call this matrix 12. If you can solve this equation that's in blue, you can solve the equation above. To solve the equation in blue, you would normally subtract 10 from both sides, right? Well, with matrices, we try to avoid subtraction and division. We just use multiplication and addition. So instead of subtracting 10, we can add negative 10 to both sides. We're adding its opposite. So that's what we're going to do with this matrix equation. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the additive inverse of this matrix here. So all we do is just change each element to its opposite. And then we're going to add that to both sides of the equation to keep it balanced. So these two will cancel each other out. So we get x is equal to, well, add the element in position 1, 1 to the element in position 1, 1 down there. Negative 2 plus negative 8 is negative 10. 3 plus 10, 13. 7 plus negative 11, negative 4. And then last, 0 plus 3 is 3. So there's my answer. All right, let's try a little more complicated one here. We want to solve for x. Again, if you don't know where to start, let's just replace these with numbers. So let's do 2x plus 5 is equal to 11. What would you do to solve this equation? Again, only use addition and multiplication. Don't use subtraction or division. So we are going to add negative 5 to both sides. These will cancel out. We'll get 2x is equal to 6. Again, we're not going to divide. We're going to avoid dividing and subtracting. So how can I get rid of the 2 using multiplication? Multiply both sides by 1/2. 2 times 1/2 is 1. We get x is equal to 3. So we're going to do a similar trick with the matrices. It took 2 steps. We're going to do it in 2 steps. We're going to add this matrix, its additive inverse. And then we're going to multiply both sides by the multiplicative inverse of this matrix. Okay, so step 1. Let's add the additive inverse. So that'll be 0, 3, negative 2, negative 1 to both sides of my equation. Let's mark out. We have 8, 7, 2, 2, x is equal to 5 plus 0, 5, negative 2 plus 3, 1, 1 plus negative 2, negative 1, and then 0 plus negative 1, negative 1. So now what we need to do is we need to find the multiplicative inverse of this matrix. This is like what you did yesterday. Find its inverse. So let's call this A. So to find the inverse, we find the determinant first. So let's calculate the determinant for A. So 8 times 2 is 16 minus 2 times 7, which is 14. So the determinant of A is 16 minus 14, which is 2. So to find the inverse of A, we do 1 over the determinant. So 1 over 2. And then the ones that I circled in red, remember, when we're finding the inverse, we switch those two. The ones that I circled in green, we change the sign of those. So the inverse would be 1/2 times 2 is 1. 1/2 times negative 7 is negative 7/2. 1/2 times negative 2 is negative 1. 1/2 times 8 is 4. So that's the inverse. Then I'm going to take the inverse and I'm going to multiply it by, we'll call this B. So X will equal the inverse of A times B. Okay? So spread this out a little more. Double check that I got those elements right. 1 and negative. Okay. Let's draw our dividing lines in. So here's going to be my answer. So remember, we do row, we do first matrix times the column of the second matrix. So we're going to do 1 times 5 is 5. And then negative 7/2 times negative 1 is positive 7/2. So now, let's slide the arrow over here. 1 times 1 is 1, plus negative 7/2 times negative 1 is going to be positive 7/2. Now let's use the bottom row in this column. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. And slide this over. 1 negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Let's see, what is 7/2? That is 3.5, right? So our answer, X, would equal 5 plus 3.5, so 8.5. 1 plus 3.5, 4.5. Negative 5 plus negative 4, negative 9. And then negative 1 plus negative 4, negative 5. There's our answer. You can leave your answer as fractions or decimals, whatever you prefer.